genetically engineer plants and animals that are better suited for space.
Coming up, China tries to get its economy back on track after the COVID shutdown. Deborah Lair of Edelman Global Advisory takes us through what's become of the Chinese economic miracle. This is Wall Street Week. Global Wall Street lost a leading light this week when Sam Zell passed away at the age of 81. He went from managing student apartments in his dorm room at the University of Michigan to being a legendary investor in real estate and energy, making billions of dollars along the way. Zell was known first and foremost for his real estate investing, acquiring office space over many years in his Equity Office Properties Trust, and then selling it all to Blackstone in 2007 for $39 billion at just the right time.
We made a deal, and that deal was significantly higher than the NAV. And consequently, it was an easy decision for me, even though it was my baby. It was something I started from scratch.
Though in later years, valuations made Zell think twice before becoming a real estate buyer again.
For all practical purposes, I haven't bought anything in 10 years. And where the opportunity has created, I've sold a lot.
Zell invested in energy of all sorts.
I've always believed that diversification is your friend. And I've always attempted to have some kind of energy diversification and continue to do so.
And recognize that the world needs to move away from fossil fuels while warning that it is going to take time.
We have got to reduce our energy exposure. The transition from fossil fuels to renewables is going to be a very long process.
Zell was called the grave dancer, taken from an article he wrote about resurrecting dead properties, but he always warned about the risks involved.
And, and as you're dancing around the graves, you have to be really careful you don't fall in.
Which he very nearly did in his leveraged buyout of the Tribune Company, for which he was roundly criticized and on which he lost $300 million. Sam Zell was deeply concerned about the fiscal health of the United States, alarmed about the growing debt, and concerned for what it could mean for the country's economic health.
We've added, $7 trillion to our debt in 3 years. This is the Weimar Republic. And if the United States isn't careful, they're going to find themselves in the Weimar Republic.
His memoir was titled, Am I Being Too Subtle? The Adventures of a Business Maverick. Whatever Sam Zell was, he was never subtle. He was a true original, as an investor and as a person, always preferring to follow his own, sometimes idiosyncratic, instincts.
I was very, very successful at listening to my own song. I was very capable of ignoring the noise. The number of times people have told me you don't understand, is legendary. And yet I was comfortable and had the level of self-confidence that allowed me to make the right decisions at the right time.
China and the United States, what was an afterthought when President Nixon went to China in 1972, has now been catapulted to be the most important economic relationship in the world, as the Chinese economy has grown more than sixfold, trailing behind only the United States. And the U.S. helped it get there, leading the move to admit China into the WTO.
Bringing China into the WTO is a win-win decision.
And there's no doubt that U.S. trade with China has grown dramatically since the end of 2001, when China officially joined the WTO. But now the Chinese economic juggernaut is showing signs of slowing, as the COVID lockdown creates uncertainty about what comes next, and demographics weigh on growth. Not to mention continued tensions with the United States, which the WTO's Okonjo Iweala warns could damage global growth.
The costs of the world fragmenting into two trading blocks, very high. We've actually done some simulations of this at the WTO, and we've seen that if we break into two trading blocks, the world global GDP is going to decrease by 5% in the longer term.
And JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon insists we can avoid.
America and China have a lot of common interests: climate, nuclear proliferation, anti-terrorism, global stability. And we have differences. We're capitalists, they're not, and it's okay. We can sort it out, but we need to keep the Western alliances together, not just around war and Ukraine, but around strategic economic relationships, including trade.
And to get an accurate and up-to-date picture of where China is right now, we welcome now a true expert in the area. She is Deborah Lair. She is both the vice chair of the Paulson Institute as well as the CEO of Edelman Global Advisory. Deborah, thank you for coming back to Wall Street. We really appreciate it. We now have the G7 meetings that are happening this week. China is not physically there, but certainly they are an important part of the audience. What is the message that the United States and other members of the G7 want China to take away from these meetings this week?
David, you're so